morning, everyone. Welcome to Her Path, the podcast for busy women looking for purpose, health, and happiness. Today's topic is medication and weight loss. It has always been a topic of interest for busy women. And recently, in the past few years, there has been a big emphasis on medication, especially in social media. We've been hearing a lot about these magical solutions to drop weight fast, especially since celebrities have been on board. We're hearing all about the Ozempic and other brands that seem to have been a breakthrough to help people lose weight. And so we'd like to take some time to discuss medication and weight loss with you today. And of course, when it comes to exploring weight loss, it is important to remember that the weight loss medications are not a magical solution. They are a tool that can be very, very helpful for people who are struggling, have done all the things, and need additional hormonal support, appetite suppression to meet their goals. And medication is not the only solution to health, well-being, and happiness, but they definitely can play a role in supporting weight loss efforts. But they shouldn't be used alone as the only solution to help, because they have their limitations as well. So knowing that you also benefit from making changes in your life, taking accountability for your actions, and address the situations that get in your way of succeeding in losing weight is important to achieve lasting success on your weight loss journey, because we want permanent results. We don't want to lose weight and only to gain it all back in moments of stress or when we get off the medication, or because we didn't set a protocol or a plan for ourselves for this lifestyle change. And I'd like to explore a little bit more with you, what some of these lifestyle changes are that can help support your weight loss efforts. So as far as lifestyle changes, they're very, very effective when they're combined with healthy eating habits, regular physical activity. And for someone who is wanting to lose weight, it's beneficial to look at it as a long-term commitment. Short-term goals can be very helpful, but for permanent weight loss, a long-term commitment to make a permanent change is the best way to keep it off forever. And relying solely on medication without addressing these lifestyle factors does not lead to sustainable weight loss. As a primary care physician, I do encounter people who want to lose, 10 pounds or less in preparation for a vacation or for a wedding, and are not really interested in something long-term. But the majority of people who want to lose weight for good. However, don't take into account that the changes that need to be made, even though they are small changes that add up over time, need to be permanent changes. And it needs to be something that is documentable, trackable, so that you know what you're doing, so that if it works, you can continue to do that. Or if it's not working, you can look back at your plan and make some changes so that you can get results, because there really is no reason why you can't get the weight loss. Also, people who are considering weight loss medications should seek support to understand the role of their nutrition, to understand the role of exercise for them, and to figure out what changes need to be made in their behavior to achieve those long-lasting weight loss goals. And also, people who use weight loss medications should take responsibility for their health and make active decisions in changing behavior, changing dietary habits, along with taking the medication. And also taking accountability for any successes, but also for any lack of changes. and simply saying, "Oh, the medication's not working for me. The medication is not effective. I may be resistant to it." Because again, the medication itself is not magical. Those lifestyle changes, changes in the diet, changes in the physical activity, getting your rest, getting well hydrated, managing the stress, all of those factors still play a role in weight loss. So even though someone is taking a weight loss medication, but they're still drinking all the things, they're not changing the quality of their food, they're not sleeping, they're not managing their stress, they're not staying well hydrated, that's going to make it more challenging to be able to lose the weight. And the weight loss medication is just one component of a holistic approach to losing weight. We have to also manage the emotional baggage, the psychological reasons, and the social factors that are making it challenging for us to lose weight. I'm curious to hear from the other coaches what their impressions are, what your guys' impressions are on what you've heard about weight loss medications, because they're not new. They've been around for forever. But just recently, in the last few years, there's been a lot more attention to them as a magical solution. I know I've been hearing a lot more about it, but I'm curious to know what you all have heard or what your impressions are about the recent weight loss medication kind of frenzy.
Well, I've heard a lot about the side effects
Mhm.
and paralysis, and I've known a couple of people who've had a lot of problems with nausea. And I don't know how the gallbladder plays into it, but they didn't have gallbladder, so I don't know if that's a consideration. I've also heard that you lose about 50% of your muscle mass, which I think is an integral part of our overall health and well-being. But, I think some people do fine on them, so I'm not really sure. But I do know we make our own GLP-1 in our small intestine, right?
Yeah, that's right. Those injectables like the Ozempics that we're hearing about, that is mimicking a hormone that we already make. And it's fascinating because this hormone acts on the gut to slow down your digestion, to help you feel full. But now we're learning that it actually acts on your brain to also help lower food chatter so that you have less cravings, you have less desire to eat or overeat, which is something completely new and different and really been powerful in helping people with overeating, but also, yeah, side effects. So the nausea, the stomach upset, the vomiting. I mean, those can be real deal breakers for someone who wanted to use a medication to help augment their weight loss. Unfortunately, some people can't tolerate those side effects. Any other impressions? Because I feel like some people are really either, gung ho about using medications and have no bias whatsoever about it. And then I also hear a lot of negatives about it, like it's the easy way out, like it's a shortcut, it's not natural, or that people should be using their willpower and it's one's own fault if you can't get weight loss because you are not disciplined enough or you're not um, uh, uh, responsible enough or driven enough to lose the weight, or you're not somehow like you're a failure if you have to depend on medications. So I kind of hear all across the board positives and negative impressions about using weight loss. Do you all have any opinions or heard of what other people are saying about it?
Yeah, I'd love to jump in, and this is where I was going to go. And I just have to say, Gabby, we're so lucky to have you with your expertise in this area on this podcast. So thank you for sharing all your wisdom with us here, because this is a hot topic. Yeah, I definitely I come from a family that has a history of food addiction. And I am very sensitive to that concept of, oh, you're taking the easy way out. Because I've heard people in my family say, I just can't stop thinking about food. I think about it 24/7. I wake up in the morning, it's the first thing I think of, and it's a constant dialogue in my head. And I just think that's such a hard way to go through life, and it's a struggle, right? It's a daily, you're fighting with your brain daily. So I love the fact that there is a drug that takes that chatter away or lessens that chatter, because it gives relief to the person who's in that space that is always thinking about food. So I hear I hear those statements, but unless you've witnessed or experienced that food addiction, I don't think people understand that it's a difference of just willpower. It is a constant chatter.
Yeah, because we hear it all the time. Like, why don't you just stop? You know, why can't you just stop, or why can't you just not do it? But it is a very complicated, mechanism that occurs in our body, and a lot of it is very much hormonally mediated. I mean, when your body is constantly hungry, or you're perceiving hunger, is like, and when you perceive hunger, the automatic thoughts go to food. And sometimes that hunger could be triggered by emotional stimuli, also stressful stimuli, mood changes, where you are in your reproductive cycle. All of these things can affect it. But if you're struggling with weight loss, it can make it, or with being overweight or wanting to lose weight, then it makes it really confusing for you. It's like, well, I'm trying to listen to my body, but my body is telling me, my mind is telling me to eat. And so these medications have been game changers for people who have struggled with that. And despite trying to follow a specific protocol, or despite, doing all of the exercise, or despite calorie counting and trying to keep those calories super low, and still not getting results, or still feeling that constant drive to overeat, or never feeling full. And these medications have really helped reconnect people's minds and stomachs so that they can experience what that fullness is like. And even then it takes time to really understand what that fullness means for them, and how to change their eating habits and adjust with the medications at the same time. It's even the medications themselves are challenging to live with for some people, but because they have a desire, a dire need, whether for health reasons, emotional reasons, and everyone's reasons for wanting the weight loss is completely valid, even if it is a just simply vanity reason. Everyone's reasons for wanting to lose weight, I think, are completely valid.
Well, that makes sense what you said about them working on the brain, because I actually heard that once you stop taking them, everything comes flooding back. The binging comes flooding back, and like this desire for the poor food choices comes back. So that really makes a lot of sense. So what do you think people could do to prepare for going off them if they didn't want to take them long term?
So that is where having a plan for themselves is very important. So a plan is, I call it a protocol. So a way of eating that is realistic to be able to maintain long term. And so I'm a big fan. The plan that I usually recommend for most people is really avoid those substances that tend to be more addictive for us. So that includes sugar, and that includes flour and processed refined carbohydrates, to really limit that in the diet, because those trigger a very strong dopamine response in the brain. Those get digested very rapidly. We get a rapid insulin surge with those foods. Insulin comes up, it triggers the storage pathway in our body. We go into storage mode hardcore. Insulin levels come down. An hour or two later, we get hungry again. And it's just a cycle of hunger, eating, weight gain. And it's really challenging to break unless we really limit those foods in our diet. And so that is something that I recommend for really everyone, is to limit those foods from your diet, to have a more reasonable hormonal balance, less hunger, less food chatter in your brain, because you have less hunger. And initially it is miserable to really let go of those foods on the regular. But that is a much more natural and healthier way to sustain long-term weight loss, is to really limit those foods that really worsen food addiction, food cravings, and hunger.
Can I ask about, I've heard a lot about with these drugs that they do slow down your digestive process. What about intermittent fasting? I know that lots of lots of people use intermittent fasting as part of their food protocol. Is that okay to do when you're on these medications?
Yeah, so intermittent fasting is something that is completely natural. It's basically going prolonged hours without eating. And so when you're not eating, and sleeping counts as fasting, by the way. So when you're sleeping, you're fasting. So people will say, oh, I can't fast. There is no way I can fast. I'm going to die if I don't eat. I have to eat every 4 hours. Otherwise, I just feel terrible. And well, I believe some people do feel terrible, maybe if they don't eat regularly because their hormonal balance is completely out of whack. They may be sugar burners and their body does not know how to use fat for fuel. So they may feel, lightheaded, dizzy, tired if they don't constantly get some kind of fuel in their body. But if you've slept more than 4 hours in a row, 6, 7, 8 hours throughout the night without eating, then obviously you can fast. And so during the time that you're not eating, your insulin levels, which is that fat storage hormone, that hunger hormone, actually go down. And when that insulin level comes down, only then will your body start using fat for fuel, because your body is not going to be storing fat and burning fat at the same time. That is not a physiological process. That is not a very efficient process for the body. And so prolonging that fast, and I always recommend kind of straddling sleep time whenever we're going to fast. So making dinner as early as possible and then not eating anything else after dinner. No more licking, drinking, biting, tasting, snacking on anything that has calories, anything that has sugar after dinner, and allowing your body to digest and allowing those insulin levels to go back down to baseline will help your body use fat for fuel. Use that overnight fast as well. And then wait till you get hungry the next day to eat. Now, some people may benefit from eating earlier, and there are some people who literally don't get hungry until noon or afternoon. And so using that time to allow your body to use fat for fuel, that actually decreases that insulin level, so decreases the body's drive to store fat. It actually upregulates your fat storage metabolism. It upregulates your natural GLP-1 hormone. So you get reconnected and resensitized to sensation of feeling full, to the less hunger over time. You get used to eating smaller meals when those hormones get better balance. And so intermittent fasting is a fabulous way to also help decrease food chatter, to help maintain a more natural hormonal rhythm, and to get that weight loss.
I actually like reframing hunger. Like when I feel hungry, it's kind of like, okay, girl, you're burning fat. It's a good thing.
Oh yeah. I mean, I do it all the time. I mean, I've been intermittent fasting for 7 years now. I started doing it when, with my last kiddo, I gained a lot of weight before I had her. And I really, after I had her, decided, I really need to get back on track. And so intermittent fasting was a fabulous way to do it. And because I work and the work is so busy, I actually do eat from Monday through Friday. When I'm working, I just eat dinner. And during the day, I get so busy, sometimes my stomach will grumble. Literally, it's like a couple of seconds and it goes away. And I know when that's happening, I'm still eating. I'm eating on the go, but I'm eating my love handles. I'm eating my fat on my butt, like your body's eating, even though you're not shoving food in your mouth. People think like, oh my God, I'm going to starve to death. No, you're not starving to death. Your body is amazing. Your body is meant to survive the apocalypse. When you're not putting food in your mouth every few hours, your body just doesn't stop functioning. Your body's going to go and get that fat from your liver. It's going to get that fat from, your back or wherever it is you have it stored. Your body keeps eating, but, mentally, we do sometimes struggle with not quelling anxiety or not quelling any negative sensation in their body with some kind of substance. Our body is amazing. Your body will have your back and continue to allow you to function, and it'll get the fat, but we just have to let it.
I think that brings a good point of like the mind and the body are connected. And when it's been used to utilizing, simple sugars, processed carbohydrates like that, like you called it a sugar burner, your body's used to being a sugar burner. And we go back to that motivational triad concept, like your brain has been adapted to use carbohydrates and sugar as a primary fuel source. And so when you try to change that by intermittent fasting and adjust your hormone levels, your brain literally freaks out and it thinks that it's dying because it's in that survival mode. And so that can feel why it is impossible and so challenging for folks to do intermittent fasting or to even to change habits altogether. And I think with these medications, just like you said, Gabby, that it's a tool and to use them as a tool. And I really like, Elise, how you shared, it can be a life-saving tool for some folks, just like how heroin addicts have methadone and alcoholics have Antabuse. This could be a, tool for people with food addiction. And then to be able to use that tool while they are establishing different habits and rewriting those neural pathway in their brain for things like eating foods that are more whole and nutritious and getting more movement in the day with their body and maybe trying some intermittent fasting and drinking more water and avoiding basically those addictive substances, like just like a heroin addict, you can't have heroin. You can't have just a little bit of heroin. You can have no heroin. Just like an alcoholic can't have just a little bit of alcohol, they can have no alcohol. And so
Right.
using the flour and sugar as kind of the hard no that and I think maybe that's why so many people gain. That's what I've heard is that it is a magical medication. And then once they stop the medication, they gain all the weight back.
Right.
And I would imagine it's because they have been continuing to eat maybe not as much flour and sugar. Um, so they have lost some weight, but that all those hormones come flooding back into their brain and the cravings can feel urgent and like they're going to die. And if they don't satisfy that urge, yeah, the apocalypse is happening in their body.
Yeah. And not everyone is, is able to really overcome that. And so these medications can be a game changer for them. And for anyone who has struggled with overweight or obesity, it is a chronic issue. It's not something that that ever will disappear as far as that hormonal drive to store. And even any obesity medicine trained physician, we see it as a chronic health condition. So similarly to someone who struggles with their blood pressure and they take blood pressure medication, once their blood pressure is controlled, do we say, all right, stop the medicine now, you don't need it anymore? Or someone who, has, a chronic condition that they use medications for. All right, your condition's under control, let's stop the medicine. We don't do that necessarily for a lot of other, chronic health conditions. So a lot of us look at obesity or overweight, the same way. For someone who's gotten results from the medication, we don't see it as, okay, you'll, stop it. You never need it anymore. We understand that for a lot of people, this is a chronic struggle and it's a chronic condition. And the medication, a lot of times, is used on a chronic basis. Because they stop it, then all of that hormonal kind of dysregulation, will come back because that food chatter comes back, that hormonal drive to store comes back, and then the overeating sugar, carbohydrates, just snowballs that cycle again. And so a lot of people who use weight loss medication do end up needing to continue to have those permanent results using it in the long term. Because they are challenged in following that protocol with the intermittent fasting, the low sugar, low carbohydrates. And so medication itself is not an easy fix or a permanent solution the majority of time.
I have one quick question. Maybe it's not a quick question, Gabby, but what about, would you compare that to the bariatric, like the sleeve surgeries?
So funny thing is that now because of the medications, there have been less, less number of surgeries being done because it's very similar. Yes, you get full quicker, you get sensation of fullness, and you get weight loss. But if you don't continue to maintain those dietary habits, how many of us know someone who's had a bariatric surgery and gained a lot of their weight back, even after having their tummy, reduced in size drastically because they don't maintain those dietary changes, and you can still gain that weight back even after bariatric surgery. So those lifestyle changes, those habits, the being very aware of what your triggers are for overeating, making a plan on how to address them is very important. So it is a complicated issue. Medications can be very, very helpful, but not alone. Still, those lifestyle changes need to be in place to really maintain long-term weight loss results. Well, thank you all very much for joining us today, and we look forward to discussing again in the future. Hope you all have a wonderful day.
Hey, one more thing before we leave. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. We are certified professional coaches, but this broadcast is not a substitute for medical or psychological advice. Okay, thanks for listening. See you next week.